The hard problem of consciousness is the problem of explaining why any physical state is conscious rather than non-conscious. It is the problem of explaining why there is something it is like for a subject in conscious experience, why conscious mental states light up and directly appear to the subject. The usual methods of science involve explanation of functional, dynamical, and structural properties, explanation of what a thing does, how it changes over time, and how it is put together. But even after we have explained the functional, dynamical, and structural properties of the conscious mind, we can still meaningfully ask the question, why is it conscious? This suggests that an explanation of consciousness will have to go beyond the usual methods of science. Consciousness, therefore, presents a hard problem for science, or perhaps it marks the limits of what science can explain. Explaining why consciousness occurs at all can be contrasted with so-called easy problems of consciousness, the problems of explaining the function, dynamics, and structure of consciousness. These features can be explained using the usual methods of science, but that leaves the question of why there is something it is like for the subject when these functions, dynamics, and structures are present. This is the hard problem. In more detail, the challenge arises because it does not seem that the qualitative and subjective aspects of conscious experience, how consciousness feels, and the fact that it is directly for me, fit into a physicalist ontology, one consisting of just the basic elements of physics plus structural, dynamical, and functional combinations of those basic elements. It appears that even a complete specification of a creature in physical terms leaves unanswered the question of whether or not the creature is conscious. And it seems that we can easily conceive of creatures just like us physically and functionally that nonetheless lack consciousness. This indicates that a physical explanation of consciousness is fundamentally incomplete. It leaves out what it is like to be the subject for the subject. There seems to be an unbridgeable explanatory gap between the physical world and consciousness. All these factors make the hard problem hard. The hard problem was so named by David Chalmers in 1995. The problem is a major focus of research in contemporary philosophy of mind, and there is a considerable body of empirical research in psychology, neuroscience, and even quantum physics. The problem touches on issues in ontology, on the nature and limits of scientific explanation, and on the accuracy and scope of introspection and first-person knowledge, to name but a few. Reactions to the hard problem range from an outright denial of the issue to naturalistic reduction to panpsychism, the claim that everything is conscious to some degree, to full-blown mind-body dualism. Thomas Nagel contends that the problem lies in the inherent subjectivity of consciousness. Conscious experiences can only be fully understood from specific points of view, which makes them elusive to objective scientific explanations. For instance, no amount of objective information can tell us what it is like to be a bat, highlighting the difficulty of reconciling consciousness with physicalist accounts. Joseph Levine points out an explanatory gap between physical processes and consciousness. A good scientific explanation should allow us to deduce the presence of the phenomenon being explained. But no matter how detailed our physical understanding, there remains an open question about whether consciousness is present. This gap suggests that we do not yet have an adequate explanation for consciousness, and thus the hard problem remains. The hard problem of consciousness arises due to specific features of conscious experience. Uriah Kriegel divides consciousness into two components: the subjective, how we are aware of our conscious states, and the qualitative, what we experience, like the redness of red. The subjective component is characterized by immediacy, meaning we access our conscious states directly without mediation or inference, which gives the impression of infallibility in our knowledge of them. The qualitative component involves indescribability. The qualities of experiences, the redness of red, cannot be fully conveyed through description, making them challenging to explain scientifically. Moreover, the independence feature means these conscious qualities seem disconnected from the underlying mental processes, as illustrated by thought experiments like inverted qualia and absent qualia. These features, immediacy, indescribability, and independence, are key reasons for the difficulty of explaining consciousness within a physicalist framework. If we can't explain these features, consciousness may need to be accepted as a fundamental aspect of reality, challenging physicalism. Responses to this challenge range from eliminativism and reductionism to panpsychism and dualism. This was Consciousness in Simple Explanation. Thank you so much for watching.